Right, so I want to start by thanking everyone who's arrived here today with us from the universities and the Institutes of Technology and the ETBs, guidance counsellors, all the speakers. You're all really very welcome. We're delighted you're here. But in my presentation, I'm speaking to the students. So I'm delighted to see so many students here, or potential students. And basically all this information is for you. So I hope you find it really helpful. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So, right, I'm going to start by showing you where you can find this information. And this works really well on a phone. You don't have to have a laptop for this. So if you basically just Google the Irish Refugee Council and go to our homepage, under what we do, supports, and education. So if you get yourself to this page and click on this little link here, Education Information Booklet. So this booklet was created for the current academic year, which is 2020-21. And it's specifically a guide for protection applicants, people with refugee status, subsidiary protection, permission to remain, and so on. From March to about October, it's updated very frequently. So I never print these out, never post them, because it's all the time changing as the universities change or the Department of Education change something. So it's always a live document. So this is what I'm going to share today. So there are 40 pages in this. You'd be delighted to know I'm not going to go through them all. We'd be here till midnight. I'm going to focus mostly on the start, because that's more about the education system in Ireland. That will help you understand it and hopefully get the best out of it. Ooh. Now somebody help me with that. Okay. Sorry about this. You can tell my IT skills aren't great. I'll get there eventually. There we are. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the middle section of the book is then, it covers all the scholarships that are available by the universities and the Institutes of Technology. So essentially, this booklet focuses on education for people who are over the age of 18. But I have a section in here which refers to primary and secondary education. Mostly because many of you will have children who are in the Irish education system. So all these links in the booklet are live, so you can click on any of those if you want to find out more about, you know, the primary or secondary education system. So one of the most important things that you'll probably figure out in education in Ireland is Quality and Qualification Ireland. So the QQI, this is an independent state agency responsible for promoting quality and accountability in education in Ireland. It was set up in 2012, and it includes a previous organisation which was called Further Education and Training Awards. So I say that because people still refer to FETAC. You'll hear people saying FETAC level 5 or 6, when what they really mean is QQI level 5 or 6. So it's just a categorisation of a particular course. And within QQI, they have this section called NARIC, and NARIC provide academic recognition for foreign qualifications. So if you've come to Ireland with a degree from another country, you can contact NARIC and ask them for a comparability statement. And you get that, you can get to NARIC by clicking on any of these links. Now I should say that it only applies to wholly completed degrees. So if you've done part of the degree, it won't work. There's no point contacting them. And then the next thing you need to know about in Ireland is the National Framework for Qualification. So since 2003, we use this framework, the little rainbow as I call it, and all courses fit into this levels 1 to 10. So just to give you some examples, if you know children in about age 15 who are doing their junior certificate, that fits in here, it's a level 3. When people leave secondary school, they do their leaving certificate. They're normally around 18, 17, 18, 19, and that's a level 5. And level 6 and 7, no, level 5 and 6 are generally post-leaving cert courses. Undergraduate degrees are 7 and 8. A master's would be level 9 and a postgrad would be level 10. And generally speaking in Ireland, we refer to further education and higher education. And so further education is usually level 1 to 5 and higher education is often 6 to 10. There's a little grey area in the middle, but I won't get too caught up in that at the minute. So how do you get into university in Ireland? Well, there are different pathways. And the most common one, I suppose, for Irish students would be to do their Leaving Certificate at the end of their secondary schooling. You can do the Leaving Certificate as an adult, but it's really not necessary. There are lots of other ways of getting into university without doing a Leaving Certificate. So one way would be to do a post-Leaving Certificate course. This would be level 5 or 6. Another way is to do an access programme. I can't recommend access programmes highly enough. It's a 1-year programme. Not all universities offer them, but it's a learning to learn programme, and it's a really good way of getting into university. Or you can go in as a mature student. So anybody who is age 23 on January 1st next could apply as a mature student to go to university next September. If English isn't your first language, they will ask you to do an English language test. And IELTS here is the most commonly used testing system. Some universities might also ask you to do a mature student assessment pathway. This is an exam that you do in one day. You can't prepare for it, you just go and do it. And the link is there if you're looking for that. But in all cases, contact the university first and ask them how you need to apply to them for the course that you're interested in. And then I would just note here that there are some international foundation programs on offer. They charge about €15,000 for 1 year. But I really want to say that these programs are not necessary to attend university in Ireland. There are all these other pathways to get into Ireland. So please don't be tempted to go down that road. Now, if all of that seems a little bit confusing, where do you begin? Where do you begin to go to college? Well, my best piece of advice for anybody is to go and speak to an education guidance counsellor. Ireland, for the purposes of education, is divided up into 16 different education and training boards. You can see them here on the map. In some cases, it might encapsulate a county, as in Donegal or Cork. And in other cases, you might have an education and training board that join counties together, like this one here, Mayo, Sligo, Leitrim Education and Training Board. So we have Sarah on the line who's going to tell you more about Education Guidance Council in Education Guidance Counselling in Ireland. So I won't say much more about that, except that you should really pay attention to that because it's a free service and it will set you off on the right path. A little bit about further education and training before I go into the higher education side of things. If you're in Ireland for 9 months or more, you can apply for a work permit. And if you have a work permit, you can attend post-leaving cert courses at level 5 and 6 for free under a scheme called VTOS. Now VTOS stands for Vocational Training Opportunity Scheme, but don't worry about that. Just know that if you have a work permit, you can apply for VTOS funding. And in all of these education and training boards around the country, there are colleges of further education and there are further education and training centres. Now, not all of them will have VTOS places, so you will have to check that out, but the guidance counsellor will help you with that. Some colleges might only have 20 places, some may have 100 places. And these are not just for you, they're for everybody in the country. So they're also targeted at Irish people who might be unemployed, who need some education and training to get back into the workforce. And I should say that you did need to be here in 9 months in order to get a work permit, but just recently the government have announced that they are going to reduce that to 6 months. So once somebody is in Ireland for 6 months, they can apply for a work permit and then they can apply to do these courses for free.
Charlotte, can I interject?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded and we're going to share all the recordings with you afterwards through the Eventbrite link. So don't worry if you're finding it's a lot of information, you will be able to go back over it at your own time later on, okay? So
Good point.
just
Good point.
to carry on there, Charlotte. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is that a way of telling me I'm talking too fast?
Not at all, not at all. But there is so much information, not just from your session, but from other sessions. So people, if they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, don't worry, you'll be able to catch up in your own time. And the booklet is always there, as Charlotte said, to go back and check through. Okay, over to you again, Charlotte.
Thanks, Veronica. So that is post-leaving cert education, and there is other state funding that you can apply for post-leaving cert education, but I will leave that to Brendan and Anthony to talk about later on in their presentation, because there is state funding for post-leaving cert as well. So these are all the contact details for the education guidance counsellors around the country. I can't emphasise strongly enough, please go and talk to an education guidance counsellor before you set off on the wrong path, because so often I will have somebody who comes to me and, for example, they'll have worked in, say, finance, business, accounting in their own country, and then they arrive here, go into a direct provision centre, and somebody is doing a course in, I don't know, healthcare or something like that, and so they go and do that course as well. And then a year later, they'll come to me and they'll say, I don't really want to do healthcare anyway. I have accounting as my background. I want to do accounting. And so then you have to go and find an accounting course. So please go and see a guidance counsellor before you set off on the wrong road. So how do you apply to go to university in Ireland? Well, starting from the top, a level 10 is a doctorate or a PhD. I'm not going to say much about that because I don't get a huge amount of inquiries about it. And to get funding for a PhD in Ireland is very, very difficult. A level 9, which is a postgrad or a master's degree, what you should do there is contact the college or university directly to find out how you need to apply, because for some of those you need to apply directly, and for others you have to go through the Postgraduate Application Centre. And then additionally, have a look at pages 15 to 32 in this booklet, because it will tell you which universities offer scholarships for postgraduate programmes. And there is some state support for postgrad as well, but Anthony can talk about that later. So level 7 and 8, undergraduate degrees. There are two very separate things you need to do when you're applying to do a degree in Ireland. One is to apply for a place on your course, and then the second is to apply for funding, a scholarship. So in order to apply for a course, you have to apply through the Central Applications Office. The details are here, but I'm not going to go through it because we have Eileen from the Central Applications Office who will talk about that later. So I will move on. In terms of higher education, another very important thing to remember is most third level universities and colleges in Ireland are publicly funded. So please apply to one of these publicly funded courses for your degrees. There are lots of private colleges out there as well, and while they're very good, you cannot get state funding if you apply to a private college. And so I've had situations where people have not managed to get a place in a publicly funded college, and they've started off in a private one, and the next year they get their permission to remain and they cannot get state funding for that. So you're stuck paying those fees for 4 years. So unless you've got 20,000 euros sitting in your pocket, I really would advise you not to go down the route of starting with a private college. So how much does it cost to go to university in Ireland? I could spend an hour talking about this, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to briefly tell you two things that are very important. One is residency. So you need to be in Ireland to get state funding for 3 years. 3 out of the last 5 years. Essentially, that means 3 years. And this rule applies to Irish citizens as well. And the second very important thing is nationality. So whether you have a stamp 4 or whether you haven't had a decision on your protection application determines which direction you go to in terms of for funding. So the state funds include SUSI and the Student Support Scheme, but as I said, we've got Anthony and Brendan online, so I don't have to go through that. And I will just briefly mention the 1916 bursary, because this is also a fund that's available for people with status. And you can hold a 1916 bursary while you have a SUSI grant. And university is another funding stream, but again, it's for people with their status. So the next section of this document really just covers all the university scholarships. And to apply for university scholarships, you don't need to be in Ireland for 3 years. You can apply if you're here for less than 3 years. And different universities might approach that in a different way. You know, so some universities might give preference to people who are here for more than a year, or, you know, so lots of universities and ITs deal with these things slightly differently, but just know that you don't have to wait for 3 years to apply for a sanctuary scholarship at any university or institute of technology. So this little map here shows you where they all are. The yellow smiley faces are the universities, and the red smiley faces are the institutes of technology. And you'll see straight away the ITs have a much better geographic spread. A lot of universities concentrated in the Dublin-Leinster region. But I think in the years to come, that's going to change as well. So for each university then, if I take DCU as an example here, for each university, this is the information that I give you. I give you the number of places that are available. So DCU have 5 places, which are a campus-based undergraduate scholarship. Well, I suppose nothing's campus-based at the moment, given COVID, but in normal times, this will be campus-based. They also have 5 places in online undergraduate and postgraduate. And I should say that for each of these entries, you will find a live link that will give you more details about that particular scholarship. It'll give you an email address that you can inquire for more information, and it'll give you the closing date. This obviously refers to the current year. So Maynooth have 3 places available, and that can be undergraduate or postgrad. NUI Galway have 12 scholarships available. Now this is the only university where these scholarships are not just dedicated to protection applicants. The other places I've mentioned are all just for protection applicants. In the case of NUIG, their 12 scholarships are for all communities who are underrepresented in 3rd level. So that would include undocumented migrants, Irish travellers, etc. Trinity College have 4 places on their access, asylum seeker access programme. That's undergraduate again. They also have an access programme. TU Dublin have an access programme. Now, TU Dublin haven't actually announced their scholarships this year, but they have actually supported 6 or 8 people this year with a fee waiver. So hopefully it'll be more formalised for next year. UCC have 5 places undergraduate scholarship, and they also have 20 places in their part-time adult continuing education programme, which is a really interesting programme if you're in that part of the world. Then we have UCD. They have 4 places reserved for protection applicants on their open learning scholarship. They have 6 places for their access programme, and they have 5 undergraduate and 2 postgraduate scholarships available, as well as a whole range of lifelong learning programmes. University of Limerick, 6 places on their access and 12 places on their undergraduate. And then the Institutes of Technology. Now, the Institutes of Technology generally have less places available, but they're much smaller organisations than the universities. And they have a great geographic spread, as I said, so this is a really important element as well. So Athlone have 6 places on their access programme, 3 on the undergraduate programme. IT Carlow have 2 places. Cork Institute of Technology have 3. Dundalk has 1. IADT and Dunleary have 2. GMIT in Galway have 2. Letterkenny IT have 3. Limerick is the star IT, they've got 10 places available. IT Sligo have 5. IT Tralee has 1. And Waterford IT, again, they were new to it this year. They didn't put a number on it, but I know from working with them that they have supported 4 to 6 people this year. And then we have National College of Ireland that have 2 places available. So there is a huge range of scholarships available there. And while they might sound, you might think, oh, there's only 2 here or there's only 3 here. Generally speaking, they are for people who are here less than 3 years, because if you're here more than 3 years, you can apply for state funding. So it really is a fantastic amount of scholarships available altogether. And I'll say a little more about postgraduate funding here. It can be quite difficult to get postgraduate funding as well in Ireland. But I have, in the booklet, there are some links there to various suggestions that I've come across. Might be worth looking at. I'll just tell you also that the Irish Refugee Council have an education fund, but we get nothing from the government for this. It's all private donations. So individuals around the country that might just send us, you know, 10 or 20 euro a month, or they might send us a check for a few hundred now and again. And then we have a small number of companies that will give us a few bob towards that fund. And we have one annual fundraiser, which is the VHI Women's Mini Marathon, but we couldn't do that this year because of COVID. So hopefully we will do that next year.
Charlotte, just to know, you're coming to the end of your time.
Perfect. I was just checking my clock myself to be sure. So the rest of the document really are just, it's useful information. Take your time to have a look through it in your own time. And if you ever have any queries, you just need to come back to me. And just let me do one more thing, if I may, Veronica.
Sure.
Now I just want to share, I just want to show you one other thing. A lot of people, oh, can you see this, Recruit Refugees Ireland? Are you seeing it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just the biggest problem this year we've had is people in need of laptops. And ourselves and all these organisations down here joined together to try, we're doing a fundraiser for laptops because everyone's studying online. So if anybody needs to apply for a laptop, if they just go to this Windows for Opportunity here, and at the bottom of it, you can apply for a laptop. And you just pop your name and email and address in there, and then somebody will contact you. So we're raising funds to try and get laptops. I don't know how long it'll take, but if your name isn't on the list, you know, if you're not in, you can't win, as they say. And I will then also just leave you with the fact that we have an Irish Refugee Council Education Facebook page. If you haven't already joined it, please do. There are a few questions you have to answer when you're joining it. If you don't answer, you won't be let in. But this is really useful because, you know, we post things like this event that we had today, or we remind people, that's the laptops that we posted. We remind people that, you know, the closing dates for the student support scheme and for Susie and stuff like that. So, so that's really important. So that's me done.